welcome to another episode of Iconic Freedom, the Formula. We are setting the standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of your choices and the consequences for those choices. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for.
And then you just cry. Because this is somebody that you love. This is somebody that you care about. This is somebody who was there for you. This is somebody you wouldn't be here without him. And you had to take something from him. Now, this is not, look, this politics is politics. But this is a human moment for one of the great humans in America. This is a huge moment for him, for his family, for all of us who love him, for all of us who wanted him to get across the finish line. But if you're a young person watching this is leadership.
I don't know any women, and I know his grandchild was up on the thing, and they're trying to humanize him and change your idea about who this guy is. Don't fall for that.
Trump, you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't care about her race. I care about her
Then
competence.
why call her a ding-dong?
And I'm telling you what the polling shows. I'm telling you what the polling shows. And it does. And I'll be glad to sit down with you and walk you through the polls.
Please do, because I never know when it's constructed to call people names, Senator. On the left or the right. But
I'm sorry that hurts your feelings, but let me say it again.
Senator, you keep bringing it back to my feelings. My feelings matter a little. All I'm telling you is if you think you can gain this November calling people names, I don't know how far that goes, left or right, but we'll see. It's still early, to your point.
Your feelings seem to me like they matter to you a lot, Neil, and I'm trying to be objective here. Let me say it again.
Are you really being objective, Senator? I just think you've got a bash-a-thon, a name-calling at her. If you call that being objective, I don't know. But, Senator, I do want to thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Neil. I hope you have a better day.
Yeah, so do I. Hope you have a better day.
So those are a few of my favorite things. So I'm talking today about toxic emotions, and specifically I used those examples because they kind of represent a variety of people's emotions and how they manage those emotions. So I've talked about this before, that your emotions are small little indicators to you, right? That try to give you a message to pay attention to something, to, be on alert, in a sense, in that moment, to be vigilant. It's not a place to live. And you'll see that, there are quite a few people in life who like to live in their emotions. And what they're not realizing is it's a toxicity. It is a lack of development of the brain because you're stuck in emotions. You're stuck in a very infantile portion of your life. You are not able to have cognition and to be able to think logically. And here's the thing about nature. You cannot cheat nature. You cannot fake this. You cannot fake, I'm not going to be upset by this. It actually has to come from a development of self, a development of understanding within you that my emotions are indicators for me. It's only for me. This doesn't matter for anybody else. And it's to be able to navigate your life in a way that makes it possible for you to flow in and out of situations. You ease in and out of situations. I recently, had gotten up in the morning very early, and I was doing a few things, and I pulled out a tray and pulled it too far, and I dropped the glass that shattered all over my hotel room. So what was interesting about it was that I literally did not react to it. I saw that there was glass. I saw it was all broken. I went, oh well. And so pushed the tray back in, and I put my socks on and walked over the glass, put my shoes on, walked back over, and then cleaned everything up and, took care of it. It was an interesting observation because if that was you, how would you have responded? Would it have been like, oh my God, what the hell? And freaking out, or would it have been similar to my own response? Okay, 5:30 in the morning, here I am not paying attention. And so there it goes. But to observe that I had no emotion was very fascinating to me. Okay, so that aside, just an observation of from whence I came, which was not like that. There was a time in my life that I lived in a toxicity of my own emotions, that my brain at the time of development was stunted. In a sense, if you want to say it, it was retarded because it had not fully developed. It had not fully developed its cognition, its comprehension, ability to integrate, and it did not develop beyond the understanding that emotions are just small little indicators, little moments of, there's a little blip, there you go. What do you need to do with that? Something to pay attention to. So one of the things that I always like to talk about when I talk about people's emotions and you're observing another person's emotions, whatever is happening with that other person emotionally has nothing to do with you. It is not about you. So, but what does that mean? It means that in that exact moment, someone is getting emotional in any way, whether they're angry, upset, they're crying, whatever. Their experience in that moment is only about them. It's about their history, their self-interest, maybe their attachment to an outcome, whatever motivation's going on in their life, whatever background they bring to that moment, and then it gets triggered. And when it gets triggered, it shoots off all of this toxicity in your body. Now, listen, I've talked some politics on this show before, and I'm going to tell you, there is one side over another that they have a lot of toxicity when it comes to emotions. They practically live in their emotions. That's why I think the thing with Whoopi Goldberg is hilarious. She and all the other, the actor types, they live. That's their whole life, is living in their emotions. And what's fascinating about it is they don't realize how toxic it is. What's really interesting is that when you look at them, you can see the loss of vitality in their life. And you can see how they get all bunched up and scrunched up, and people get really overweight and their hair goes bad, and their hair, on their face for the guys goes bad, and they just start looking like a mess because of the toxicity and their inability to have clean thinking. The brain needs a healthy approach for development. It needs to be able to explore, to self-correct, to imagine, to create, and to cognitively construct and deconstruct. So when emotions are not healthy, they get magnified. And when an individual starts having emotions and feelings, instead of them bringing or being, let's say, instead of them being able to have them as an indicator, what would you like to do with X, Y, and Z? It becomes toxic like a drug that is induced to the bloodstream, causing the cognition to get derailed, and only the toxicity of the emotion remains. Okay, so I was getting ready to talk about kids. So when we teach children, especially, how to look for their own signals of emotions and then to address the situation to whatever resolution for themselves. So we want them to see emotions as a tool to manage things, right? So then we would go into something starting to happen, little Billy, he stole my toy. Okay, and so what would you like to do with that? What do you want to do as a result of that? Not, how does that make you feel? No, they've already come to you. They're already upset. You can already tell that they're upset. Now you're asking them, what would you like to do about that? and then step back and give them the freedom and the liberty to think about that moment, to contemplate that moment, to create and construct for themselves how they want to deal with that situation. Because they will figure it out. They might blather a little bit and, babble a little bit as they get through it, but then they may land on, well, I think I shouldn't, play with Billy anymore. Okay, then there you go. You've kind of figured it out for yourself. Don't play with Billy anymore. So what is amazing about that is that you keep teaching a child how to interact with his universe or her universe. Well, the same thing for you as an adult. So if you didn't do this as a kid, like I didn't do this as a kid, I only learned it as an adult, then you got to learn it for yourself, right? You have to unlearn all the bad stuff, and you have to learn that which you had not been taught. Remember when I talked about Tina Turner? That was one of her things. I had to learn that which I had not been taught. So the brain is not developed sufficiently to put reality together for kids, right? It's why they believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny and all this, fantasy kind of stuff, right? Fairy tales and unicorns. But when the brain starts to develop, then it starts to, again, construct and deconstruct, and then you give a child that freedom to explore and to figure it out. Well, the same goes for you, is that you have to explore, you have to figure it out, but you have to start recognizing what are these emotions, and how do I know when they've reached a level of toxicity? And most of the time, I can tell you, for most people, the minute they reach a level of toxicity is when it comes out of your mouth. So that means you have to start learning when it's starting to just kind of foment a little bit inside. It's starting to germinate just a little bit inside. It's like, okay, I'm starting to have something I need to pay attention. And maybe you stop listening to that person. All of a sudden, they're blathering on whatever it is they're saying. Maybe you stop listening because you're paying attention to your emotion. Your universe, your life is about you, right? Who cares whatever they're saying? You're going to figure that out. But you need to figure out for yourself. You need to develop your brain sufficiently to put reality together, to be able to construct and deconstruct, to pay attention, to ask yourself, what would I like to do in this moment? And as you start to develop and you start to clean away all of that old garbage that's in there about, oh, everybody talk about your feelings. How do you feel about this? Oh, it hurts me when you say this. Like, no. That's all the toxicity. That's you just regurgitating all your toxicity onto an unsuspecting society, wanting them to take care of it. No, you take care of yourself. When we indulge in the toxicity, we exacerbate the reaction and we encourage it in ourselves and others, which becomes incentive to continue the behavior or to repeat it to satisfaction, especially when things don't go accordingly. Emotions will cloud the channels and create an inability to connect thought, to connect logic, to connect comprehension. Now, the toxicity left unchecked and ill-managed, that will create a lifetime into adulthood of very extreme behaviors. You could be manic, depressive, you could be extreme reactionary to things, high anger, low sadness, create an entitlement towards satisfaction because when you were a child, your parents just indulged every time you threw a fit. Strong, deep anger when feelings and emotions are not acknowledged or indulged. You're not paying attention to me. I'm sure you've seen these videos on Instagram or TikTok or X or whatever where these people just lose it. Well, these people are low frequency, folks. These people are very undeveloped as a species. and they're not able to manage their life. So when negative emotions are not acceptable, then a person will go into fantasy so that it takes over the expression of the anger or the sadness, or because those emotions are not acceptable, but they got to do something with them. And if they haven't developed, if they haven't created this ability to use them as indicators and nothing more, then they go into magical thinking, romanticism, the rose-colored glasses, the whole 9 yards. Sure, that doesn't sound as, negative or unhealthy, but indeed it is, because you're still indulging in a toxicity that's going to take over at some point. It will create that level of disease. It will atrophy and destroy the vitality within. Emotions, when gone unchecked and undeveloped, will become toxic. And every time you indulge in the toxicity, it will shoot through your bloodstream. And think of all of the times, how many times during the day do you allow that jolt into your bloodstream? Imagine now what that does to your body, to your life, your vitality in a lifetime. Going back and restructuring, constructing, deconstructing, understanding my emotions, those are for me. They're indicators to tell me how and why I need to do something, to give me a heads up. Hey, pay attention to this. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Moving on. And you do that. If you don't do it, then you go down the other path. We go towards something or we go away from it. We go towards our health by paying attention to healthy emotions that are indicators to us to help navigate our life, or we move away from it and we indulge into the toxicity of our emotions to the point where it will take its toll on us in every way possible. It'll take its toll on your brain. It'll take its toll on your body, on your heart, your liver, disease, all cancer, all of that stuff is all part of that holistic entity that is you. And you got to decide, which direction do I want to go? Do I want to be in this toxicity, or do I want to be free from it? I will tell you, on a health side of it, get off the carbs, get onto the proteins and fats. You can go out and you can discover this for yourself, but I'm going to tell you that carbohydrates are an exacerbation to what is ill health in you and undeveloped in terms of your cognition, comprehension. And protein, fats, will help you rebuild all of that. And that's how that works.
Which is why this country must take emotion out of their vote. This is a choice over leadership. You tune out the he said, she said, and use your natural gift of reason.
And we are at the end of another podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, hit that like button if you would. Subscribe if you're interested. Share this with your family and friends. You never know how it's going to help them on their journey and on their path. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. See you next week.